Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Acts, the 9th chapter. And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord. So basically, he was threatening and saying how he was gonna, destroy and ruin all the disciples of the Lord with every breath he took, went out unto the high priest and desired him letters to Damascus, to the synagogues, that if he found any of his of this way, that is, those that believed in Yahushai, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound onto Jerusalem. So he basically was asking for letters to be sent so that he could have the permission and the cooperation of those synagogues to allow him to bind and capture and assault, if need be, the believers of Yahushai and bring them back. So in the NLT, it says he requested letters addressed to the synagogues in Damascus, asking for their cooperation in the arrest of any followers of the way he found there, that is, the followers of the way of Yahushai. He wanted to bring them, both men and women, back to Jerusalem in chains. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven, and he fell to the earth. So chances are he wasn't walking, because it's not really walking distance. Like, you don't want to be doing that most of the time. And traveling, they would either be on like a mule or a camel or, like a horse or something. But wherever he was on, the light shined upon him. And as it says, he fell to the earth and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Yahushai, whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And this kicking against the pricks was a reference to, here the Lord likened Saul to, like, an ox, right? An ox that is being, when you go into the ancient world, you have a husbandman, right, who would have the plow, and then he would yoke the oxen together. And sometimes the ox would not want to move or go in the right direction. And so they had something that was known as a goad. Goad for ox. So it looked something like this, and it had a sharp pointy end. So they would use it to poke the animals, or prick them, to get them to move or to go in the right direction. And so sometimes when the animals would be pricked, they wouldn't like it, and they would like kick back as a form of rebelling, but then they would just get pricked more. So here the Lord likened Saul and the things he's doing onto kicking back against the pricks, all right, which is him basically not going in the direction the Lord is trying to get him to go in, and instead trying to persecute the believers in the Lord. But the Lord is telling him, like, it's inevitable. It's you're wasting your energy, and it's hard because you're fighting really against me. And he, trembling and astonished, said, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? And the Lord said unto him, Arise and go into the city, and it shall be told thee there, or told thee what thou must do. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. So they didn't see anybody, but they heard the voice. And Saul arose from the earth, and when his eyes were opened, he saw no man, so he was made blind. But they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. So let's pull up here, map of New Testament Israel. What is this? Do we have? Hmm. Just trying to find a. What's this here? What do we have here? Hmm. Um. Not bad. Not bad. Trying to see if I can find a decent one that's okay. This is not bad. But anyway, we know Damascus is up north. They don't seem to have too many, you know, good diagrams that show, enough parts of the land for you to be able to see. But in any case, that's fine. Maybe we'll go with one of these that we saw earlier. Yeah, this might have a lot on it, but yeah, we're not gonna go with this. We'll just stick with this. So you see, Damascus is up north over there. Paul's making his way all the way up over there. Okay, and so he goes there, and as it says, he was there 3 days without sight. So he was blind; he couldn't see for about 3 days, and neither did eat nor drink. And there was a certain disciple at Damascus named Ananias, and said to him, and to him said the Lord in a vision, Ananias. And he said, Behold, I am here, Lord. And the Lord said unto him, Arise and go into the street which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he prayeth, and hath seen in a vision a man named Ananias coming in and putting his hand on him, that he might receive his sight. Then Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard by many of this man, how much evil he hath done to thy saints at Jerusalem. And here he hath authority from the chief priest to bind all that call on thy name. So Ananias is thinking, but Lord, this guy's been doing nothing but evil, to us. Why should we go and what? But the Lord said unto him, Go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. These Gentiles are Israelites that were, one, you had Israelites that knew they were Israelites, born in foreign lands, speaking Greek. You had two Israelites that didn't know they were Israelites, born in foreign lands. Okay. And Paul was to, basically spearhead the spreading of the gospel to those far, far regions and bear that testimony before kings, right? One example is when he was even in the court, right? He basically preached concerning the Lord to King Agrippa, right? I believe that was Agrippa II, where he said that I would is that thou would have been a Christian, roughly paraphrasing along those lines, and the children of Israel, right? So he basically had a lot to do. For I will shew him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake. So the Lord had chose Paul for a very, specific and heavy role here. And Ananias went his way and entered into the house, and putting his hands on him, said, Brother Saul, the Lord, even Yahushai, that appeared unto thee in the way as thou camest, hath sent me, that thou mightest receive thy sight, and be filled with the Holy Spirit. And immediately there fell from his eyes, as it had been scales, and he received sight forthwith, and arose and was baptized. And it's interesting because it almost sounds like a similar effect when Tobit received his eyesight, where concerning like the scales. Let me see if I remember that correctly. Let's find Tobit, or maybe let's look actually for. Maybe I'm just remembering. Nope. Yeah, right. It says here. Okay, scale away the whiteness of Tobit's eyes, but now I'm looking for when it actually happened. I think that might be either 13 or 14. Let's see. Or maybe it was 12. Let's go back there. Yeah, here we go. Close secret, prayer, fasting, alms, surely. Let's check 11. Oh, okay. So it was probably, I was remembering a mix of this and that previous verse about, as it says, the whiteness, verse 13, piled away from the corners of his eyes. But anyway, long story short, he got his eyesight back. That is Paul, having seen this in a vision, and he was baptized. So at this point, he was ready to go. And when he had received meat, because remember he was fasting, he was strengthened. And then was Saul certain days with the disciples which were at Damascus. And straightway he preached Yahushua in the synagogues, that he is the Son of God. But all that heard him were amazed, and said, Hold on, is not this he that destroyed them, which called on this name in Jerusalem, and came hither for that intent, that he might bring them bound unto the chief priests? So did I miss something here? Because he literally persecuted these same people. He was on his way here to continue some more of that persecution, and all of a sudden he's done a 180. But Saul increased the more in strength, and confounded the Jews which dwelt at Damascus, proving that this is very Hamashiach. So basically, like, remember, Paul had a background in the law, right? He learned from Gamaliel, right? So he knew the scriptures, but now the Lord had made it all clear to him. This psalm was referring to this. This was about me. This is this. This is that. And so having that with the boldness and the knowledge that he already had, it was very difficult, if not even difficult, it was impossible for anybody to confound those words. Because for one, they were of the Spirit of the Lord, and nobody can confound that. Verse 23, and after that many days were fulfilled, the Jews took counsel to kill him. Now, here, after this, he flees, right? Let's go into verse 24. It says, but their laying await was known of Saul, and they watched the gates day and night to kill him. So they didn't, Luke doesn't mention here, the author of Acts doesn't mention here how long those many days were in verse 23. But after some duration of time, it says here that the people now that were there wanted to kill him, right? Then, because it's not everybody that believed on the gospel of Yahushua. Then the disciples took him by night and let him down by the wall in a basket. And when Saul was come to Jerusalem, he essayed to join himself to the disciples. But they were all afraid of him, and believed not that he was a disciple. So they probably thought maybe because as far as they know, he left Jerusalem to go to Damascus to go and persecute the believers over there. So him coming back, and now all of a sudden he's saying, oh, he's trying to be a part of them, and he sees the truth now and all that. They're like, is this some like ploy or tactic to get us to let our guard down so you can arrest us or something? So they didn't believe it. Now, this was Paul's first time going back to Jerusalem after he had been converted. But that's why I mentioned in verse 23, the author didn't mention how many days this was. But when you go to the book of Galatians, Paul tells you that, right? Matter of fact, let's go there real quick. Galatians chapter 1, verse 15. It says here, but when it pleased God, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me by his grace to reveal his Son in me, that I might preach him among the heathen, immediately I conferred not, that is so that the Israelites amongst them could hear it and believe. Immediately, right, I conferred not with flesh and blood. So he didn't wait for any confirmation, no nothing. He just trusted in the Spirit immediately. And as he says, neither went I up to Jerusalem to them which were apostles before me. So on his way to Damascus, the Lord revealed himself to him. He was made blind. He went into Damascus. He stayed there for, without his sight for 3 days. Ananias comes and gives him his sight back. And then, as it says, he was preaching amongst them. And so as he says here, immediately as he was preaching, he didn't go up to Jerusalem, but I went into Arabia and returned again into Damascus. Then, after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to see Peter and abode with him 15 days. But other of the apostles saw I none, save James and James, the Lord's brother. So when we go back to when we go back to Acts, this time when Paul, was in Damascus, before they tried to kill him, and then he went to Jerusalem, as we're reading here, he had gone to Arabia, came back, and spent roughly about 3 years or so in Damascus preaching and teaching. And now he went to Jerusalem for the first time after this. And that's why, as it says, many people in Jerusalem didn't believe him, because they were like, yo, you left here as a persecutor of the church. What are you talking about? So where are we at? Verse 27. But Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles and declared unto them how he had seen the Lord in the way, on his way to Damascus, and that he had spoken to him, and how he had preached boldly at Damascus in the name of Yahushua. So based on what's written in Galatians, these apostles here that he met would have been Peter and James. And he was with them coming in and going out at Jerusalem. So he was there, he was preaching, he stayed with them for a period of time. He mentions, I believe, 15 days or so. And he spake boldly in the name of the Lord Yahushua and disputed against the Grecians. And these were they were Israelites that were born in foreign lands, but they were here at Jerusalem and they spoke Greek. But these ones didn't believe. Okay, you had Israelites that were born in foreign lands that knew they were Israelites, and they would come to Jerusalem, they would keep the customs, but they didn't believe in Yahushua. But then you had the same type of Israelites that were, once again, born in foreign lands, but they believed in Yahushua. So the ones that didn't believe here disputed with Paul, but they went about to slay him. See, so they got to the point where they were like, yo, we got to kill this guy. Which when the brethren knew, they brought him down to Caesarea and sent him forth to Tarsus. So when they found out, like, yo, they're trying to kill Paul here, they basically, as it says, the brethren got him up out of there for his safety. Yeah, as you can see, when it mentions Grecians, it says Greek-speaking Jews. Now, let's look up. Still going to want that map. Say New Testament Israel map. Zoom in here a bit. So we're looking for right. So you have here Caesarea Philippi, which is up north up here, and then you have Jerusalem, which is down here. Now, what ended up happening was they sent him to, as I mentioned, Caesarea, and then from there back to Tarsus, which is in Cilicia. Right. That was actually, all right. You can see there on the map, Tarsus, which is in Cilicia, and that was Paul's actual hometown. Then had the churches rest throughout all Judea and Galilee and Samaria, and were edified, and walking in the fear of the Lord and in the comfort of the Holy Spirit were multiplied. See, because that he wasn't persecuting them anymore, right? And likely he was leading the charge in persecution against them, but having been converted now, all that ceased. It stopped. It went down. Not that everybody accepted it, but the persecution went down, and they were able to, have some rest in terms of, not having to be on the run because you had Saul after you. So you had, as it says here, and the comfort of the Holy Spirit were multiplied. You had more and more people joining and believing. And it came to pass, as Peter passed throughout all quarters, he came down also to the saints which dwelt in Lydda. Let's see what that is. Hopefully it shows on here. Oops. Okay, not helpful. All right. That's what we're doing. Yeah, let's actually see if we can get a better image of this map. There you go. Okay, so you have Caesarea over here, which is by the coast. So likely he could have gotten a ship to take him to Tarsus. Trying to find where Lydda is. Okay, so very close to Joppa, which is a port city, not far from Caesarea. So if we look at Caesarea, it looks like Jaffa might be the same, but anyway, it's probably near some down here by the coast, like you can see Apollonia and so on. But anyway, he goes there to the saints, right, the believers that were there, and there he found a certain man named Aeneas, which had kept his bed 8 years, and was sick of the palsy. So he was bedridden, paralyzed to some degree for 8 years. And Peter said unto him, Aeneas, Yahushua Hamashiach maketh thee whole. Arise and make thy bed. And he arose immediately. And all that dwelt at Lydda and Sharon saw him and turned to the Lord. So when they saw it, they believed, and they turned to follow after the Lord. Now there was at Joppa a certain disciple named Tabitha, which by interpretation is called Dorcas. This woman was full of good works and alms deeds which she did. And it came to pass in those days that she was sick and died, whom when they had washed, meaning they washed her body, they laid her in an upper chamber. And for as much as Lydda was nigh unto Joppa, so those two cities were near, and the disciples had heard that Peter was there, they sent unto him 2 men, desiring him that he would not delay to come to them. So they said, please, you got to come immediately. Then Peter arose and went with them. When he was come, and then Peter arose and went with them. When he was come, they brought him into the upper chamber, and all the widows stood by him, weeping and shewing the coats and garments which Dorcas made while she was with them. But Peter put them all forth, and kneeled down and prayed, and turning him to the body, said, Tabitha, arise. And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up. And he gave her his hand, and lifted her up, and when he had called the saints and widows, presented her alive. Look at that. Boy, oh boy. And it was known throughout all Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. And it came to pass that he tarried many days in Joppa with one Simon, a tanner. Now, a tanner is one that, let's see if it tells us in here, basically deals with animal hide, like skins. Yeah, it says a hide. Let's see what we have in the, not there in the dictionaries. Do we have tanner? Okay, we have tanner here. Oh, wow. Okay. Not much. So we'll look it up. But basically, when you look at the location, as we saw, right, of this city here, there's a reason why Simon the tanner was at that port or that coast, because of the profession that he was in. It would sometimes have a strong scent or smell with the things that he would do, being a tanner. And therefore he needed the the wind that was by the water. Basically it was like an open area. So if you were to do that in the middle of a city, that would be pretty bad. So it says here, Simon the Tanner, who appears in Acts of the Apostles. That's fine. That's fine. I want to know what he did. Let's see if we can find. Okay, Simon Tanner, profession. Yeah, so it says here, based on the biblical account in Acts 9 and 10, Simon was a tanner by profession, a leather maker who treated animal hides, residing in the seaport city of Joppa. Due to the offensive odors and ritual impurity associated with handling dead animals, this trade was considered unclean in Jewish society, often requiring him to live on the outskirts of the town by the sea. So let's look up here, tanner, profession. Okay. So it says here, tanning or hide tanning is the process of treating skins and hides of animals to produce leather. A tannery is a place where the skins are processed. Historically, vegetable-based tanning used tanning, an acid chemical compound derived from the bark of certain trees, in the production of leather. An alternative method developed in the 1800s is chrome tanning. Cool, that's fine. Let's find out more historically how this was done. Let's see what they have on here. Yeah. So reading this paragraph here, it says formerly tanning was considered a noxious or odoriferous trade and relegated to the outskirts of town among the poor. Tanning by ancient methods is so foul-smelling that tanneries are still isolated from those towns today where the old methods are used. Skins typically arrived at the tannery dried, stiff, and dirty with soil and gore. First, the ancient tanners would soak the skins in water to clean and soften them. Then they would pound and scour the skin to remove any remaining flesh and fat. Hair was removed by soaking the skin in urine, painting it with an alkaline lime mixture, or simply allowing the skin to putrefy for several months, then dipping it in a salt solution. After the hair was loosened, the tanners scraped it off with a knife. Once the hair was removed, the tanners would bait or soften the material by pounding dung, just feces, dung, likely not human dung, into the skin, or soaking the skin in a solution of animal brains. Baiting was a fermentative process that relied on enzymes produced by bacteria found in the dung. Among the kinds of dung commonly used were those of dogs or pigeons. So I think I'll stop right there, but you start, like, it makes sense, right? Why it is that he was dwelling here at Joppa, being that it was by the seaside, because of the the nature of his job. And that brings us to the end of the book of Acts, the 9th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak Wadash. Until next time, Shalom.